Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for January 3rd through 9th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 5 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. First this week I read Disfigured on fairy tales, disability, and making space by Amanda LeDuc. This book takes elements of the author's life as well as fairy tales and combines them to talk about how fairy tales have impacted people with disabilities or disfigurements. As it says in the introduction, this is not the be-all and end-all about fairy tales, it's also not the be-all and end-all about disabilities and disfigurements, it's her looking at fairy tales through the lens of her experiences. With that in mind, I learned a little bit about fairy tales, was able to look at them in a slightly different light, and enjoyed seeing it through this lens. This book talks about ableism both from society and self-imposed, and I highly suggest it. The other nonfiction book I read this week was Girl Sleuth, Nancy Drew and the Women Who Created Her. This is a book, as you might have guessed, about the creation of the character Nancy Drew. This was an incredibly informative book. It took us right back to before Nancy Drew was even created, to the start of the Stratemeyer Syndicate, which is the company that created the character. The head of the company at that time was Edward, and he would hire ghostwriters to write books based on these series that he would create and these outlines he would create for each book. This was one of the most influential companies for juvenile fiction ever. And through this book we got to know about who Carolyn Keene was, which is just definitely not one person. We also get to know about the rivalry between ghostwriters and people that work directly for the Syndicate, as well as the sale of the rights for this character to Warner Brothers and how they tried to get that back, and then later there was a TV show and that Nancy Drew ended up in Playboy and that was a whole thing. There were a lot of interesting twists and turns, and honestly, a goal of my life is to be invited to the 100th anniversary of this character, because that would be really cool. People who attended the 50th anniversary include Betty Davis and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, so I would be in good company. I'm going to talk more about this book in its own video because there is so much information in here that I want to impart all of it to you, so look for that in the future. On to the shows I watched. I finished Best Leftovers Ever, which is a competition show where 3 people take leftovers from a fridge and try to make something completely different out of them. It's informative, it's entertaining, it's just really wholesome content. And it's one of those shows that gets me excited at least about the idea of cooking, even if I don't take it practically into the kitchen. My roommate and I also watched a bunch of episodes of Bones, but we specifically only watched the ones that had to do with the Gormagon case. If you've never seen the show, you won't know what that is, but it is an arc that took place over seasons 3 and 4, and as soon as my roommate suggested it, I was like, yes, I would love to see those episodes again because I haven't seen the show in a very long time. It was great to go back to so early in the season where we're just seeing certain characters for the first time, and I highly enjoyed that. We also watched the final episode of the 2nd season of the Orville, which means that we, like everybody else, has to wait to see if the 3rd season ever comes out, because there was a potential that it was going to come out via Hulu in 2020, and obviously that didn't happen because that was a year. We'll also have to try to figure out how to watch it because Hulu just won't take Canadian dollars. You can't get Hulu in Canada, so when it comes out, we'll have to figure it out. We also finished the 3rd season of Community and worked our way into the 4th season, and I think that we're past the point where I had seen it previously. I thought that a few episodes towards the end of the 3rd, and then we got to an episode that I definitely remembered, so I don't know when I ended, but these characters are great. I love seeing their little foibles. I love how this show will do entire episodes based around the style of other shows. I just find that really creative and interesting, and there's throwbacks to different jokes from different episodes, and it's just very cleverly written. Of course, this week I also watched the 2nd episode of the 13th season of RuPaul's Drag Race, and we finally got to see who got voted off. Sort of. That's a whole thing. If you haven't seen the episode yet, you're just going to have to, because this season so far doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is still very entertaining. I also realized that at some point they did a Hollis Slay special, and I had never seen that before, and this was a one-off episode to crown a Christmas queen, so this was very wholesome. It was also a musical. It had a bunch of people that you had seen from previous seasons come back and just do some fun holiday-based challenges, so if you're looking for something very wholesome and you don't mind watching something Christmas-based in January, I would take a look at that. I found it on Netflix. On to the movies I watched, and I dropped in and watched Megamind with my roommate for the first time. I had never seen it before. I had obviously seen different things about it on the internet, such as gifs like, "Thank you, random citizen." This had a lot of very familiar voices. There was also a point where one of the characters looked a lot like our current Prime Minister, so I definitely posted that on Instagram. Anyone else find it weird that you can actually just tag the leader of your country in an Instagram post? We live in a weird society. This movie, if you've never seen it, is a lot of fun. It takes on the tropes of different superhero and supervillain movies. It was a good time. Speaking of superheroes, we also watched Wonder Woman 84, and I had mixed feelings about this. We spent a lot of time yelling at the screen about how that's not how physics works, and then just different plot inconsistencies that we didn't really understand. However, overall, I did find it very entertaining. Chris Pine had the best line, which was simply just, "Shit, Diana." I will be quoting that for the rest of my life because it was so funny. Kristen Wiig was also phenomenal in this. I really enjoyed her character and her character arc, and I know it's something that we've seen before. It's even something we've seen in Megamind, for example, but I really enjoyed how it played out. It was also fun to see things from the beginning kind of tie around into the end. So not all of the writing was questionable, but some of it was a little bit cheesy for my taste. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being Sorcery of Thorns. This one is a standalone fantasy book, which is hard to find, so if you have any similar, let me know. I am infamous for starting series and never finishing them, so standalones are way more my speed. In this book we have Elizabeth Scrivener, who was dropped off at a library when she was a child, so she's basically been raised by the library, which isn't completely unheard of because people tend to send their children to the library at about 13 to apprentice, but she's been there her entire life, which makes her kind of weird. She doesn't know how families function, she wasn't raised by like a mother-father figure, but she is devoted to the library. Obviously something happens one day that throws that completely out of whack and she has to reevaluate her entire life, which is, you know, super fun when you're 16 years old. I absolutely love SFF books that center libraries, so obviously I was predisposed to like this, but I really enjoyed her character. I really enjoyed how she interacted with somebody who is basically the opposite of her. And people that work in libraries are prejudiced towards sorcerers and their demons, so her having to interact with people like that was interesting to see. This had a whole cast of characters that I really ended up enjoying, and I liked our slightly cliffhanger ending. The other book I listened to was We Dream of Space. This one takes place in January of 1986, which is a few months before I was born. This centers 3 children, 2 twins and their older brother, who are all in the same grade at middle school, somewhere in the States. I can't remember where it's set. I believe the twins, a boy and a girl, are 12 and their older brother is 13, but he failed last year, so they're all in the 7th grade, and they all have the same science teacher, but at different times. Their science teacher is obsessed with the fact that the Challenger is going to launch soon. She actually applied to be the school teacher that got to go into space, but didn't make it onto the shuttle, obviously. As soon as I heard that, I thought back to my admittedly limited knowledge of space travel and space things that have happened, and I was like, oh no, I'm pretty sure that's the one that exploded, and yeah, I was right. It's historical fiction, so if you didn't know that already, that's how that's going to end up, she says from almost 35 years in the future. What I liked most about this book is each of these 3 characters needed space, but in different ways. Bird, the female twin, was obsessed with this space mission. She was thinking that she really wants to grow up to be an astronaut. Her brother, Fitch, needed space from all these people that were pressuring him to go out with this girl in his class that is giving him all this attention, but she's not popular, and that was a whole interesting plot line. And then their older brother is the brother that's not good at anything. Obviously he feels down on himself because he has failed a grade and he's in the same grade as his younger siblings. He's also not allowed to play sports because his grades aren't great. He can't jump very well even though he loves basketball. He wants to play basketball. He was cut from the team. And their parents do not have a healthy relationship. They have nightly fights about this, that, and the other thing. And although the mother has a lot of points in what she brings up and criticizes of the father, it's not healthy to just have screaming matches, especially in front of your children. children. This was quite short, had engaging characters. I actually ended up crying a little bit at the end, which was a weird feeling because I was also on my exercise bike at the time, so I'm sitting there pedaling away and just kind of getting choked up over the fact that what happened at the end. So in short, if you're looking for a middle grade historical fiction, I recommend this one. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!